It is at the time of taping 10 a.m. The
Mm.
past few months since the pandemic, maaga tayo nagigising, nagkukumustahan na tayo. Tayo mga friends din natin gising na ng mga 6, 7 a.m. Sinamong 5 a.m. na nagbabike 'di ba? Kikita ko si Mong, Simon, Punsalan, nagbabike na sila ng 5 a.m. Ikaw anong oras ka nagigising?
Depende. Mga 5:36, ganyan, 5:30.
Maaga din ano? Maaga ka natutulog,
Mga 9,
mga
9:30.
9. Maaga tayo nagigising pero today late ako nagising dahil nakuha ko na yung second vaccine ko kahapon. Tapos wala namang side effect pero this morning nilalagnat ako ng slight.
Mm.
Pero weird pare kasi kahapon ko nakuha yung vaccine around noon. Backstory, the week before, nakwento ko ba sa'yo, inambush ako dito ni Pat, ni Echo, ni Badjao.
Hindi.
Bigla, nag-edit ako one Sunday, tapos dumating sila galing, sobrang nilang hype from a recording they did. Sabi
Bakit
nila,
sila hype?
galing recording masaya, parang ayaw pa nila umuwi.
Okay.
So sabi, nag-dinner yata sila together, tapos naghahanap ng matatambayan. Sabi, Kuya Rayms, sabi ni Badjao, mag-hi lang ako. Mag-hi lang kami. Ako, oh sure. Nakaset up ako dito sa basement, 8 a.m. ng gabi. Dumaan sila, oh hi guys. Usually, nag-hi yun sila. Nag-hi lang. Tapos, dire-diretso si Echo pare, may dala ng alcohol. So, hindi na sila umalis. Alangan naman paalisin ko sila, di ba? Pero hindi yun yung kwento. Yung kwento, si Pat, nakita yung boxing gloves. Yung the workout boxing gloves in the heavy bag. Tapos, pinapanood ko sila, bigla na lang silang nagbo-boxing silang tatlo. Nakakatawa lang. With the mitts. Sabi ni Badjao, si Alec, yung barkada niya, yung kasama na yung magbike, is a trainer.
Talaga?
Legit trainer, pare.
Nice.
Tama. So, yayayain na kita. Kasi, tapos sabi nila, okay, imbitahin natin si Alec. Wala lang tayong venue to
Na parang space
train.
to
Sabi
do
ko,
it.
itong garahe.
Yeah, sakto.
Sakto yung garahe. Sabi ko, host ko na yan. Sabi, okay, Tuesday. Sabi nila, Tuesday, which is kahapon.
Yeah.
Hindi ko naman naalala na Tuesday din pala yung second dose ko. Anyway, long story short, tinuloy namin. Natuloy yung workout party. Nagpakain si Erica. Si Pat di nakarating kasi meron din pala siyang lakad sa north sa Zambales. Puntahan din natin
Nakakatawa
yan.
yun
Oo. Pero sobrang okay nung pakiramdam ko kahapon after the shot na parang hindi naman ako game na. So game na rin, sumali na rin ako. Masaya May sounds, 'di ba? Tapos barkada mo yung trainer.
Masaya.
Tapos nakita ng airmat ko sa Instagram, pinagalitan ako. Tinext ako. Tama na yan. Wag ka na muna mag-boxing. Matagal na hindi pinapagalitan ni Mama. Hi, Mama. Ikaw, Daren, kailan ka uling pinagalitan ni airmat mo?
Parang recently lang.
Anong offense?
Usually naman parang hindi naman na nagalit. Parang feeling ko parang syempre as we grow older, parang mas tayo na yung we take it upon ourselves to alam mo yun, to feel the disappointment for them. Parang gano'n. Mas gano'n na siya. Pero yung talagang pagalit,
Hindi naman galit. Hindi naman galit na galit. As in,
Pinagsabihan.
As in, tinext to text me, di ba? Kailan ka tinext na, oy, ganyan. Diba?
Actually, hindi ko na siguro the last time na nangyari yun, parang may friend siya na hindi ko na kilala or hindi ko napansin, tapos parang nabastusan.
Okay.
It happens di ba? Yung
of course. Hindi.
Parang siguro, inisip nila, bastos nito parang sa text niya mo na, uy, di ako pinansin ito, parang gano'n.
Nakita ko sa mall.
Or nasa same wedding kami or something, parang gano'n. Yun, tapos parang te-text ako na, "Uy, di mo daw pinansin si ganyan-ganyan." Bla, bla, bla. Mas gano'n, pero yung matagal na rin.
Matagal na. Ako siguro 20 years na huli ako pinagali.
Ngayon mas
Siguro,
ako na yung pinapagalit, mas parang, "Shit, nakakaya yun, mga gano'n.
mm, hindi na, napagsabihan lang. So, okay, napahinto ako. Tapos, nagtataka na ako kagabi, parang, naturukan kaya talaga ako? O
Bakit?
wala?
Kasi
Kasi nga,
wala
kasi normal yung feeling.
pero yung first dose wala ka rin naman na-feel, 'di ba?
Meron, nilagnat agad ako.
Meron.
Meron agad, yun. Tapos
Talaga?
mabigat yung arm ko for 2 days.
Okey.
Noticeably heavy yung left arm. Pero
So oo, meron talaga?
walang problema yung arm ko up to today. Pero,
Hindi siya bumigat din?
hindi. Pero yung
Talaga?
first, oo. Pero yun nga, pero mahaba yung tulog ko, parang hanggang 9:30. Tapos
Pero ano,
kung hindi ka pa nag-text pare, kung hindi mo pa tinext yung link na to, hindi ako magigising.
pero nag-wine kayo, 'di ba? So baka lang
Kagabi
dahil
hindi,
lang
hindi. Hindi ako
hindi,
minom. Hindi,
hindi
hindi.
ka uminom.
Wag naman, hindi ko na, parang pwede namang hindi
Anong
eh.
oras ka natulog? Baka late rin?
Hindi, normal time.
Mahal.
Normal time. Pero nagising ako with a fever, kaya pumasok si Erica, binibigyan ng paracetamol. Pero masaya, sama ka next week.
Sige. Baka antayin ko mga a few more weeks
Oh,
to
pwede
let
din.
the
Oh,
antibodies
oh.
build, parang ganun.
Pwede din. Lahat sila vaccinated rin, so okay din.
Oo nga eh. Yun talaga yung pinaka-okey. Tapos
Tapos
ay
hindi
sorry.
kami kumain sa loob. Kumain kami sa garahe din para open din.
Naisip ko pala parang after nito kung medyo marami ng vaccinated, puwede na tayo yung guest na hindi na over Zoom, record
Gusto
na
ko
talaga.
diyan eh. Pwede ba diyan sa bahay
Sige,
mo? Diyan sa studio mo?
walang
Parang
problema,
gusto ko yung studio mo eh.
walang problema. Puwede na natin siya gawin para hindi na yung naiinis yung listeners natin na parang, "Ano ba 'yan, parang internet connections na naman."
Speaking of internet connection, last week was our worst internet issue.
Oo nga eh.
The
Pero kasi
worst.
yung album ni Reese Internet, 'di ba? Arigato Internet. So parang
Oo
baka
nga.
yun yung yun yung reason.
Kaya pala may nag-tweet may nag-message na
Ganun.
coincidence. Yun pala yun.
So
But
parang ano siya, sarcastically, "Thank you, Internet."
normally it's one of us. Normally it's me, yung may internet problem.
Saka umulan yung time na yun eh, naalala ko.
Thunderstorm. Oh,
Bumagsak
may
eh.
thunderstorm nun.
Kaya
So
parang
may
lahat humina.
interference, 'di ba?
Hmm.
So we apologize for. In fact, natakot ako na hindi kumpleto yung recording ni Reese. 'Di ba? Hindi
Kasi baka
kumpleto yung,
naputol.
oo, parang naputol. So we had to check right away. Tapos I think yung audio putol, so I re-uploaded it to you. Yung audio recording. I just sent it to you kanina lang. So anyway, yun yung kwento ko. Ay, nung Sunday, nag-record ulit sila for Dugdug Pak. Yun yung recording pala nila the previous week, Dugdug Pak.
So tuloy-tuloy yung upload nila ng banks.
I think so. Or nagbabangko pa lang sila, hindi pa edited eh. Diyan yung studio sa bahay near your folks' house sa Green Hills. And I just met the most incredible percussion player in the Philippines.
Sino?
His name is Jax. And grabe. Nung the week before, nire-rave na siya ni na Pat, 'di ba? Tas ako naman I've seen a lot of percussion players in the Philippines where madaming magaling, 'di ba? Madaming magaling na percussionist. Ito off the chains, Daren. Parang you gotta meet this
Guess
guy.
natin siya.
You guess that? Well, he works for ang kilala natin na he's a sideman kay Bullet. He plays for Bullet. Bullet Dumas. So I've seen him pero in a parang live setting lang, hindi yung eto he was layering. I heard him layer percussion na siya lang lahat halos gumagawa siya ng loops na isang buong pyesa na puro percussion na maganda yung arrangement. Sobrang galing. I was so impressed. Tapos masarap din ka-jam. I saw him jam with Bajao nung sound check when they were setting up the mics. Kumakain lang ako ng donut. Nagdala ako ng donut. Sabi ko, grabe, ang sarap nito. Kaso Sunday, I had to leave, di ba? Parang medyo may mga ibang duties ng Sunday. Minsan, panoorin natin.
Oh, malapit na. Kahit ano na, kalad ka rin na ako pagkatapos.
Oo, parang kakasundo kayo ni Eko.
Oo nga eh. Actually, pag nakikita ko siya parang, shit, tapos nag-message siya palagi sa IG, oh, ano, tara na. Tapos sabi ko, malapit na, antayin ko na lang rin. Para
Sabi
lang
ni,
being responsible din, di ba?
sabi ni Eko kahapon, suntok-suntok si Eko. Sabi niya, Rayms, akala ko ang bilis ko nung pinanood ko sa video mo, ang bagal ko pala. Sabi ko, Eko, naka-third dose ka kasi. Anyway, speaking of guests, who is our next guest is one of my favorite bands, and they released a new album, and then we listened to it. I think we talked about it last episode. Pinag-usapan ba natin?
Yes. Ay, parang nabanggit mo lang na one of the parang interesting bands na okay, parang ganun.
Okay.
Na bago.
Game, let's introduce them.
This week, we are joined by indie rockers The Buildings. Recently, they just released their sophomore album, Heaven is a Long Exhale, and they join us this week to discuss this and more.
Good morning, guys. What are you up to?
Just woke up, actually.
We've been listening to your album. I love it. I love it so much. It's like, I was waiting for this to come out. I thought it was coming out last year, and then I was surprised you guys just dropped it. Tell us about the album, how you made it, how you wrote it, and the challenges that came with recording it and writing it during the pandemic.
Nako, parang ever since 2018, we've been saying, okay, we're gonna release the album. This is the year. But it kept getting put off because life happened. And then, actually, right, Kean, the day of the parang March 14, we were supposed to have recording session, like a really long recording session. And then that's when the news of ECQ dropped. So, and it was postponed. We were waiting for things to settle down, which they never really did. And then I was like, okay, now or never kailangan natin tapusin to, or else we can't sit around and wait for it to magically finish itself. So, ayun, I stayed in Kean's studio for around a week to really do everything there, the vocals, the guitar parts, to wrap everything up. It was kind of a bloody process. Talagang pigang-piga yung utak ko, pero I guess that really contributed to how the album ended up by really holding up together. But then we also recorded a lot of parts remotely, and I guess that made it a really interesting process because instead of recording in the studio and having that live feedback, there's also a certain dynamic when you send the track, then you record the track, then you send it, or sort of trying to verbalize na parang, Dom, ano kaya yung pwede sa guitar solo na to? Sabi ni Dom. So there's this one song na sobrang stuck ako. Sabi ni Dom, gawin mong textural. Tapos ako, sige. And then that's what ended up on one of the songs, Question Code. So it was new, but I think the circumstances, the album wouldn't have sounded this way under different circumstances. So we just embraced that.
Guys.
Wait, ano ulit yung order?
Well, what were your challenges recording and writing and recording this album during the pandemic?
Challenges. Well, yun, I think never nangyari throughout the recording na all four of us were in the same room. Like, in clusters lang siya. I think only once lang ako pumunta sa studio ni Kean. Tapos, ayun, I think the rest parang remotely may yata recorded. Tama ba?
So you
Yeah.
recorded guitars in your house or Kean studio pa rin?
Kasi ako, pangit yung bass ko sa bahay. So, laging yung mga bass parts like ni-record sa bahay ni Kean.
Kean.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the challenges eh. Kasi one of the, yeah, for sure logistically yung challenge ng, kasi may pandemic, we can't all meet in the same room at the same time. Another challenge then was because of that, we kind of wanted to take a different, parang na-realize namin, hindi namin to mape-play live anytime soon. So parang we had to, or we wanted to break free from having to arrange it for a live performance. And I think in that process of having to break down na parang, okay, we only have 4 members, so this has to be playable live like in the record. We had to undo or like unlearn how that sounds and how that's written, and kind of really strip down the song from scratch and build from there. Na parang okay, maybe we can put keyboards, synths like that. Even kahit wala kaming synth player or wala sa amin may alam mag synth, marunong mag synth. So yeah, it's kind of like restructuring everything.
Si Kean parang siyang mad scientist sa studio.
Daming versions ng songs.
Yeah, super daming version.
Also, ano ba? Yeah, so parang I think ganun yung main thing na parang mas nag-focus kami on like the output, like sonic output rather than, I think before ganun na rin naman pero parang implicitly alam namin parang limited siya by yung physical realm of like having to play the instruments at the same time. Whereas ngayon parang mas nag-focus kami on like the final thing and just adding and then subtracting and combining stuff.
Oh, parang it's hard when you play live and you write songs for a live setting. You're not really comfortable with silence or letting some things breathe. It's really hard kasi, especially since you usually get to play in small bars lang, yun yung mga venues sa Manila. And you only get to play mga 30-minute sets. There's not a lot of time to experiment. So on this album, I think it was a lot of being, parang we really had to learn to be confident about, okay, bare lang to. It works this way. You let it be that way. You don't need to fill everything up just to make it feel like it's complete, if that makes sense.
About the concept of the album, can you guys talk about it?
Heaven is a long exhale, no? Nako. Siguro it's like, kasi the title track, Heaven is a Long Exhale, I guess it's about this idea of breathing kasi nung pandemic. Syempre, there are times when you get really worried and nervous and frantic. So one of the things I've been doing, this weird thing I've been doing for myself is sort of just going, in silence to the point na your humming sort of fills up your ears. So you lose track of everything else. So that's sort of a calming parang way I've been doing things for myself. And then naisip ko parang exhaling din yun. And then even this idea of an exhale, it's very, I mean, kanya, di ba nakamask ka, you can't breathe. Or when you can exhale, you see someone in public exhaling, napapaning ka. So I thought this idea of just being able to exhale, to be able to be like, ay, nako, sige, ganun. It can say a lot of different things. Yeah. And funnily, after releasing this album, it's like an exhale na rin na parang, okay, sa wakas, nandyan na.
When you made your first album, you guys were just fresh out of college.
We were
Right.
still in college.
You were still in college. And then after a few years, a lot has changed. You guys have jobs now, and the pandemic, of course, and then some personal changes. What What do you think is different making this album personally, each of you?
Mm.
Somehow I think it feels the same. I still have that, siguro, yun nga, it took a while, diba? So natabunan yung drive to play music because other responsibilities came up. There's some months I'd go not playing guitar. Pero, at the end of the day, ay, yun nga naisip ko, am I still a musician? Pero, every time I come back naman to music, I'd pick it up and it's like no time has passed. So, I think that's been like the constant thing that's been pretty comforting for me. I still feel that same sense of joy. Yung sabi mo nga dati, Rayms, it's a gift to play music. So, dyan pa rin yun.
Sa akin parang I think for this album, like, hindi na ako masyado nag-record ng bass parts. I think yung contribution ko sa album ay mas parang consultant. Like, trying to see the bigger picture and like, provide mga comments and stuff. I think, yeah, parang same as sinabi ni Mariah na parang doesn't feel different. Parang I think same pa rin na product siya of like friendship namin. Pero I think it's rin like yun, kasi I feel like with yung difference that with Cellophane parang since wala pa kaming nare-release ng music, parang free kami to like do a lot of like anything and like jump across different styles. Pero I think for this one, I mean, parang the past 5 years rin, I think personal, parang daming like changes sa mga personal lives namin. Tapos feels like marami rin para mga, like heavy stuff that happened. And so, I mean, ayoko rin sabihin na parang Heaven is a Long Exhale, parang a record of trauma siya or something. Pero, siya, I mean, yung songs kasi written over like the span of like 5 years. So parang hindi rin siya concept album talaga. Pero I think meron siyang sort of overarching sensibility, I guess, na parang may ganong sort of like exhaustion, I guess. Pero rin, nag-enjoy pa rin making music.
Yeah, yung production from the first album, I think we all came from the same influences. Mga 90s slacker, very guitar heavy, ganun. And then, in the past 5 years, we've really grown like into like different paths. We all developed our own music tastes, and I think those influences really changed the way the album was recorded and produced. That's why you hear all sorts of different instruments now kasi iba-iba na yung contribution ng ibang members sa sound.
Yung album na to was released under a Japanese label, right? So can you guys talk more about that? And paano ito nangyari?
So Call and Response Records released the album. Ayun, speaking of long detours, noong 2017, I think 16 to 17, the band went on hiatus for several months kasi I went to Japan for a bit. I was studying there. Pero after school, I'd go out to gigs by myself. I would look at Tokyo gig guides. Parang okay yung lineup na to, or it has some weird genre like goth folk. So
Goth folk.
yeah, something like that. I saw
I
the
love
craziest, some of the like most insane things. I went to Shinjuku, this bar called parang The Egg, if I remember correctly. Then I saw this guy in a suit na like he just came from work, typical salaryman. Then he literally tore off his suit in a bar with just 10 people singing Joy Division. So ganon, it was always a mixed bag of surprises. You had these really crazy, unforgettable things. You had really good things. You had the okay things. Every music scene has that sort of range. And I just happened to meet a bunch of people there. See Ian of Call and Response. Ayun, it's actually like the music scene here. You meet one person, you meet everyone else. Pero just like, that guy kasi, he has a cover band called Voided by Geezers, which is a guided by voices. Yeah, they call themselves the best guided by voices cover band in West Tokyo. Well, okay.
Did you watch
Tropa na.
them?
I played with them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, at my I had a farewell gig and I specially asked Voided by Geysers to play. So we played a few songs then with them. It
Did
was
they
super
get
fun.
drunk on stage?
Yes.
Okay. They
Of
passed the
course.
test.
Yeah. Pero sobrang saya din. And yun, I guess people of this who like the same music gravitate together. I really like the stuff on Call and Response Records. At the end of the day, the people there, they were like my family then in Japan. So, ayun, we were actually supposed to tour in Japan, pero hindi siya it was supposed to be in 2021, probably around this time. Pero that's been put off indefinitely, but at least they were still game to release our album. Shout out to Ian. Ayun.
Speaking of Japan, this is a long story. Commercial. I saw that guitar behind you.
Oh, eto. Yes.
That used to be mine.
Yeah, yun nga yung kwento, diba? Where did you get it in Japan?
I got it in Japan. I think it was, I don't know, late 90s, our first trip in Japan. And then I was supposed to buy a sampler.
Hmm.
It was a new Yamaha sampler, the A3000, I think it was called. Pero pagdating ko sa shop, the guy kept explaining to me, there's no manual. There's no English manual. I brought all these, I have all this parang yen, but I couldn't buy the sampler kasi wala naman YouTube. There's no YouTube tutorial yet, diba? So I couldn't operate it without the sampler. So I needed to spend the money.
Hmm.
And that guitar called me. It's like, oh my God, it's a weird, parang offset with a sustainer. It's a Fernandez sustainer.
Yeah.
So I got it. I bought it. I gigged with it with Sandwich. I think it was 98. So that was probably my first guitar in Sandwich. And then several years later, I sold it to Jason Caballa of Pedicab. And then
Yeah.
later on, I think you got it.
Yeah. Thanks for getting it. It's been my main
So-
guitar. Even for recording this album. So, sobrang gaan kasi and it's just so bright. And it sounds so great clean. I really enjoy it. So yun, thanks.
Did Jason change the pickups or something? Because
Yeah,
it
he
sounded,
swapped it to
sounded
Jazzmaster
different.
pickups.
Yes. Kaya pala.
When I got it,
Speaking-
wala na sustainers.
Speaking of gear, what gear has changed since you started in college for all of you? What changed? Parang I know Kean has a lot of gear now. We spoke briefly during the last year about recording. What new gear and techniques did you explore in this album? Because I'm hearing a lot of new sounds. Yet still it's the same band, but there are a lot of new sounds I'm surprised to hear in this new album.
Si Kian yun. Same lang yung
Course.
setup ko eh. Overdrive,
Same.
Rat. The trusty old I
yeah.
don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Pero si Kian, dami mong stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Siguro one of the main things was a studio, the actual place. Dati kasi sa room ko lang, so limited lang yung kayang gawin, like especially with miking the drums.
Can you
ganun.
show us the studio with your
Oh,
camera?
yeah. I'm here actually.
Give
right
us a
now.
short
Give
tour.
you guys a short tour of our tiny studio here. So we got a drum set. This is new. Well, it's not really new. It's an old kit that I bought from my wife's cousin, and it's much bigger than my old Ludwig breakbeats kit, and it's taking a lot of real estate here in the studio. But it sounds great. It sounds big, and I think
What is it?
it's a Gretsch Catalina maple.
Wow. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good for a good price in secondhand siya. New cymbals. These I got a much bigger ride. The old one because it was really small and really like ringy. I needed something heavier. So I was much more confident regarding the cymbals this time around. And you'll hear a lot of synths, and they're really mainly with this. It's like this. It's an analog synth from Behringer. It's really interesting because I don't think it's modeled after an 80s synth. it's not like a copy of an exactly like a Juno or a Jupiter or something. It's different. And a lot of software then,
What
Artorias.
DAW do you
Yeah.
use?
I use FL Studio, kind of unconventional for bands, I think.
What's your interface?
Oh yeah, interface. This guy. It's the 8920 Scarlett, just for the mics, for the drums. Need all those inputs.
How do you record drums? Because the first album, it was pretty minimal.
Yeah, yeah.
How many mics did you use for this album?
For the drums, one
Fully
kick.
mic?
Yeah, fully mic, close mic, everything, and then a stereo overhead, but no room. So snare, kick, the three toms pa nga eh. I did the whole
Wow.
3-tom rack. You'll hear it in the last song in Doghouse. It's really fun. It
How'd you-
doesn't look pretty.
How do you
Yeah.
record the guitars? Did you record it using amps or direct? And the bass, how'd you record the bass?
Halo. Yung guitars was mostly with the amp. And then yung leads direct na yan.
What
The
amps
bass,
did you use?
this one, it's a Black Star amp. It's pretty heavy, The gain is like konting ano lang, maging metal na siya. So ang lakas talaga. So I always keep it in clean, and then I just use like Mariah's pedals. She actually sent me a whole bag of pedals over the pandemic. So I used a lot of them. Rap favorite ko yan. And then the bass was just direct. Yeah. Same as with cellophane.
Soli mo yung
Same
rap ko,
setup. Yeah, for sure.
So how did you guys form?
Mm,
I think org mates yata kayo ni Ali, Mariah.
yeah, in the UP underground music
Yeah.
community. Back when meron pang kasaa, rest in peace. Yun, tambay kami ng kasaa. Kean was, he's from Ateneo naman. Pero I think we met because of like parang we both covered parang this musician in Ermita. Right? We were in like the same parang, we were going to interview him. And Kean was the photographer, I was the writer. Si Dom naman, we met sa Snack Shack. So I was wearing a pavement
yeah.
shirt.
Paano nga?
Yeah.
My mutual friends.
The burger joint in in
Yeah.
UP?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is it good?
Sobra.
Yeah. Namimiss ko na.
I gotta try that. Meron sa Mariki ng snack. It's the same font, so I'm assuming it's the same people.
Snack Shack.
Yeah, you
Snack
guys
Shack.
should. Would
Okay,
recommend.
It's in our bike route, but we've never checked it out, so I'm gonna check that out.
Sarap siya, affordable pa.
Nag-plug tayo. Nag-plug tayo. Masarap siya, affordable pa. What music have you been listening to when you started, and what new music aside from the Japanese label bands that you mentioned earlier? We should put that on the link, no, Daren, yung label.
Sige.
What music have you discovered since that added to your, musical taste and sensibilities since making the first since you formed and now?
Parang when we formed, it was Pavement, the Smiths, Joy Division, Sonic Youth, ganon. Sino pa? Mga Velvet Underground. And back then, siguro hindi pa kasing strong yung social media. So if you met someone who was into the same music, oy, what's up? Tapos kami ni Kean, our first jam, we played mga Muse and Green Day. We covered all of Jesus of Suburbia, that whole 9-minute song.
The epic Broadway.
Yeah. I mean, it only has a few chords, pero yun, you can't really play that song without knowing it by heart. And then, so that was back then. Siguro since then, for me, I got into a lot of, country, yung mga fingerstyle folk. And that was actually the basis of the song Doghouse. It sounds very different from the demo. But then a lot of my country songs went in isang project ko na Good Knife with Grandy also. So that was it. But after playing guitar loud for so long, when I was in Japan, kasi I didn't have an amp in, so I really dialed back and focused more on my technique, on sort of playing the guitar as like a self-sustaining instrument, if that makes sense, and also trying different tunings. So I think that really, parang, when I started doing that again, I got second wind as a guitarist. Also, I took classical guitar lessons. My first lesson last year nung pandemic. So, it's interesting to really focus sa skill. Dati kasi parang medyo averse ako dun. Siguro kasi matikas ulo ko. But then, it was nice to sort of push myself in that direction. Ayun.
Dom.
Ako parang sometime between Cellophane and Heaven, nagets ko na bigla yung Animal Collective. So parang parang I think rin, mas nag-permeate sa akin yung influence nung Accelerator by Royal Trucks. So parang I think yun yung naging mas sensible. Kasi I think before Cellophane was into like a lot of like garage rock, lo-fi stuff ako. Parang pero somewhere in between parang mas naging into a lot of like collage-ish type textural music. So ayun.
What bands?
So for itong collage type stuff.
Yeah.
Merong like kunwari ni-revisit ko yung early Beck stuff, like mga
Odelay?
Odelay, and like mga demos niya. Yung meron siyang parang
Mutations?
Japanese. Earlier pa, like siguro mga
so one foot in the grave.
Yeah, I forgot yung pangalan ng album. Yung may dalawang album siyang ni-release in 1 year. May isa parang folk album, isa parang noise collage stuff.
Sea Change?
Hindi. Before, like between yung album na may Loser and Odelay, meron siyang parang nilabas na mga albums na parang medyo commercial. Sinasabotage niya ata sarili niya.
No, I think that was from their contract in K Records. From a previous indie label, kailangan niyang ilabas so he could continue with the major label albums. So nilabas niya yung work niya with K Records.
Yeah, I think si Calvin Johnson ba yun? Siya yata yung nasa isang cover ng isang album na yun eh. The guy from Beat Happening. Tapos rin, I got really into Boredoms.
He's the label head of K Records, right?
Yeah. Kaya siguro yun, nandun siya sa isang cover art siya ng isang album ni Beck. So yun, Boredoms, yung Japanese band.
The Japanese noise band.
Mga iba't ibang like rin. Yeah, mga noise stuff. So yun. Kaya parang hindi ako masyado, like ngayon ko lang, after recording Heaven, ngayon lang ako bumabalik ako sa pagpe-play ng bass. Parang for a while, medyo ako hesitant to like play an instrument. Mas ako interested in sampling and stuff.
What have you been using?
Audacity.
Audacity.
Just mixing lang a bunch of tracks, seeing ko ano mangyayari.
Do you have a hardware sampler?
Wala.
Wala pa.
Saving up for.
Kean, what about you? What have you been listening to?
Dati parang I only will listen to 2 bands. Pavement, ganun. Guided by Voices dati. Tapos now it's like,
well, wait. If you're listening to Pavement and guided by, do you have a 4-track?
No, I don't have a 4-track.
You should have a 4-track. That's their sound, diba? Parang they just recorded with a Tascam, I think, with a 4-track. So I think you will enjoy it. Parang, without plug-ins, that's the sound. That's the sound of Guided by Voices. And anyway, carry on.
Yeah, just the lo-fi, just really simple, and that would be nice. I'll try it. You can do it in digital. But yeah, last year I guess was my biggest sort of music awakening in terms of listening to music. I started listening to like hundreds of more bands before, And last year ko lang na-gets yung Stereo Lab. Last year ko lang na-gets yung psychedelic rock as a genre. My favorite bands would be like King Gizzard, Chicano Batman. They're a great band. And yun, I think mainly Stereolab, I think, was one of the biggest staples for me in the past 2 years. And yeah, they sort of informed the instrumentation of the album. Ano pa? Maraming 90s, those electronic duos from the 90s, like who are those people? From the UK.
Blondie.
Words of
Ha?
Avalanche.
Blondie.
Yung
Orbital?
parang
Chemical
they're
Brothers?
yes, Chemical Brothers, like that, or sila Fatboy Slim. Ano sa duo though? Sila
You know Fatboy Slim plays bass?
that's his main instrument?
Yes, he played bass in the House Martins.
What?
Oh,
House
what?
Martins talaga
He's
as
the
in
bass-
happy hour?
Yes, Happy Hour again. Yeah, he's
Layo
the
ah.
bass. That's why all his tracks has great bass lines. He
That's
is
true,
an
yeah.
awesome bass player. Of all the big beat stuff in the 90s, he had the best bass lines. Well, yeah.
That's true. That's true. They have really a unique sound. Yeah, he has a collab with Damon Albarn. It's on his album, I forgot the name, but the bass line is so good. It's so sticky and so groovy. Yeah, I've been really getting into other instruments too. So
What would you say are the challenges that you're facing being
electronic.
a new band sa industry?
Sorry, come again.
Sorry, what are the challenges that you guys usually face na being a new band in the industry?
Siguro, we don't really, knowing the music we play, siguro we never really thought na, okay, mag-break-in tayo, let's become mainstream or something. At the end of the day, we're just making music that we like. Tapos, okay, gawin lang natin yung gusto namin. Pag nagustuhan ng mga tao, sige. Pag hindi, edi okay lang as long as we're enjoying playing together. Maybe it's not a good marketing strategy, but then I guess that's why the band has lasted this long. For like 6 years now. That's not as long compared to Sandwich, but I guess that's long in terms of like the ratio to our life. How many years we've lived, ganun ba? And I think it's just, we don't really think about making it. We're lucky din na siguro people yun took an interest to our music. But I think it was kind of a slow burn. Cellophane took us a couple of years to sell out all the copies. And there was a time that they were just lying around my house na parang, ay nako, sobrang, how are we going to, what are we gonna do with this? And every now and then I feel like it's just now that I'm seeing what we've done with the building. So parang nararamdaman ko kasi for a while it was just us four in a way. Ayun.
That's actually a great answer. Daren, I've been getting that message from several, individuals that I don't know. Parang mini-message ako. Parang, hey, can you talk about how to make it in the music industry? And then I didn't know how to answer until I heard your answer, which is, I think it depends on your parang goal, on, 'di ba? How you feel that ano yung
Ano
made
yung
it
making
for
it?
you, 'di ba?
Tama.
Oo, ano yung making it sa'yo? Parang, is it fame? Is it money? Is it, 'di ba, album sales? Is it number
Output.
of followers? But I guess in your case, parang you just want to play and make good music, and I think that's it. I think that's the secret, no? I didn't have
Sana.
I didn't
Siguro
have a
kung
question.
siguro kung numbers habol namin, sumuko na kami.
What's your favorite places to play in the city as an indie band?
Most.
Most.
Definitely.
Are they
Yeah.
still hanging nandiyan pa ba sila? Cause
Yeah.
Root unfortunately closed na, 'di ba?
Yeah, grabe yun. Sobrang nakakalungkot. I remember the first time we were in the route marquee, we had the band photo pa there. Tuwang-tuwa kami.
What's
Buildings.
what is it about Mo's? 'Di ba? Parang yung mga UP bands gravitate towards Mo's. I've played there a bunch of times, and then parang it's a different crowd. What is it? Tell us about it. To me, it
Well,
felt like old Club Dread.
ganun ba?
It has a very parang, I don't like the word, pero parang very clannish.
Ganun ba?
Parang if somebody who's not from here dumating, parang lahat nakatingin, parang sinusukat. Parang, oh, cool. It. I don't feel that because I'm old, di ba? Parang I don't get affected by it. But pag may pumasok na iba, parang, sinusukat na siya. Sa gate pa lang, pababa pa lang dun sa driveway, sinusukat na yung dumarating na band. Parang, sino ba? Ko, oh my God, it feels like Club Dread when we were kids. So what is it about Mo's?
I think, nung,
Go daw.
I think napausapan na natin itong Mariah before na parang compared to like Root, kaya kami nag-gravitate towards Mo's kasi nung 2015, parang 50 pesos lang yung beer. Tapos ano pa siya, hindi mo kailangan mag-taxi. Kasi kunwari kung sa Root, kailangan mo mag-cab, whereas sa Mo's, pwede ka lang mag-tricycle. Or like, parang malapit lang siya. Tapos, kasi parang for us, yun yung 3 main venues na parang Root, Mo's, Giho. Tapos, ayun. So, Mo's yung pinakamalapit, pinakamura. Tapos parang, ayun rin, si Mariah, nung soft opening pa lang ng Mo's, she started this prod, yung Salad Days. Tapos parang hinayaan lang kami, parang they just let us like experiment and stuff. So, for the first time, parang pwede kami mag-mosh and stuff and like just parang mag-feedback lang ng guitar and stuff like that.
When you
Kahit jazz
mosh,
bar siya. Ay, sorry.
when you mosh in Mo's, tatama yung ulo mo sa bubong sa
Hindi
ceiling.
naman. 5'3" naman ako.
Yung interesting thing sa crowd ngayon, yung mga younger crowd sa Mo's, parang talagang like kunwari yung sa Mo's, kunwari may mag-mosh, pinoprotect nila yung light sa taas, yung mga donuts sa sahig. Kapag may nahulog na salamin, gagawa ng ring around it na parang, oy, kaninong salamin to? Parang
Mabait
very,
din.
very conscientious moshers.
Yeah. Yung Mo's kasi, we had a lot of freedom. Dom's old band, the Gory Orgies. Dom and Kean's band, first gig namin sa Mo's, they raffled off a can of corned beef. I think na autograph ng band.
Can of corned beef. That's a first.
Tapos, the second gig, Dom's collection of 5 centavo coins ba?
Ano to?
Yung sa second gig ng Gory Orgies. Yeah, nung 2015 kasi, nothing was happening at Mo's yet. They were still supposed to be a parang jazz bar, comedy, stand-up. They invited me and Diego, Shire Band and Busking, to play a gig. So we went there. Tapos, uy, may drum kit dito. Uy, pwede mag-full band. And at the time, the buildings weren't really getting a lot of gigs. So, and when we did get gigs, we didn't really, parang we needed to build that confidence pa in a way. Kasi bago pa kami nun, wala pang cellophane. And maybe that ties back to your question, Daren. Parang naisip namin, if we can't find a home court, let's just make our own. So I asked Mos, pwede ba mag-gig dito? Sige. Pwede ba indie? Sige. So, yun, that's where Elves, Buildings, Gory Orgies, Sharban Busking, O Flamingo. He played there a lot. So I would put up gigs every month. Parang, siguro it was also inspired by Attraction Reaction, Admit One, na it really helps for at least the band to parang carve out their own space or their own crowd. So that, what Tom mentioned, they can experiment. We can sort of play new songs without worrying about meeting this sort of expectation ba, so to speak. And it was a lot of fun.
That's a good answer. Kasi that's the second most asked questions. Where do you get gigs?
Make your own.
Oh, make your own. I remember we did Sunday Grabe Sunday in Merrick's because nobody was booking Sandwich. And then after a while, it was Play for Serve in when Giho was new. That was our parang
Ah,
that was our home. If nobody's booking you, find your own house, 'di ba? Parang like what
mismo.
you guys did and all the other indie productions did, like Attraction and Girl Scout, and tapos I even remember watching foreign noise bands in Mo's.
Oh, with Sleeping Boy yata.
I've seen a few parang American bands and Japanese bands na noise punk bands sa nakakagulo sa Mo's. And then I attended this show, uh, Valley of Death. They're parang an older punk metal band. They're older than me. But I know these guys, pero nag ano sila, half of them went abroad, sina Ogie, and then I met them sa States. But nung umuwi sila a few years ago, there was a mosh pit I was the youngest in the crowd. That's a first. I was the youngest in the crowd sa Mo's. And these folks, my friends, were moshing, like old folks, moshing, and their wives are in the back drinking beer with their kids, who's older than my kid. But they're in the back watching dad like moshing. It was so fun. It was bananas. Like
Saya.
50-year-old guys like moshing to 80s punk rock music, parang having the time of their life. So I
This
love it.
happened
I
in
love it.
Mo's?
Yes. A few years ago. It was so fun. I got invited. It's like, oy, magbabalik, nandito kami sa Pinas, nagbisita kami, sina Ogie of Valley of Death. Tama ba? I think I got it right. VOD, Valley of Death.
Ganda.
And it's like really fast 80s hardcore. It was so fun. They were trashing the place.
Pa-invite next time. Gusto kong sumama.
You would have loved it.
I can't imagine it. Like a Mo's full of dads moshing.
I know. And they have their old old band shirts na syempre masikip lahat, parang small na yung lahat, 'di ba? Malala.
Na
Oh
dad
my God.
bod. Joke.
Dad bod lahat eh. 'Di ba?
Oh my God. What time did it even end? Like getting early.
It was late.
Late?
No.
Yeah.
It was like old times. And then I talked to the kids, and then kunwa siya, oh, meet my anak. This is ganito. He's studying in Ateneo, Lasalle. And say, what do you listen to? Tapos syempre naiya siya kasi nandun yung tatay niya, Kendrick Lamar. And the 1975 or 79, I don't know. Parang syempre the new stuff, parang look at that. It's like, oh, this is how it feels when you're, 'di ba, when we were with our folks, tas nagcha-cha-cha sila, 'di ba? Parang oh, ito na yung bagong cha-cha, tango, 'di ba? Ito na yung ballroom. So, oh my God, ballroom ngayon yung moshing na. Oh my God.
So siguro mga, siguro mga 40 years from now, ay, mga 30 naman, regroup tayo, tapos let's have like middle-aged people wearing their indie rock whatever, yung mga Doc Martens and plaid
Dapat in
skirts.
most pa rin.
Yeah.
Dapat in most pa rin.
At how about yung music video nyo? Di ba you made it using The Sims? Can you talk to us about that?
The director of that was Pat K. Laudentia. Crazy artist, wild mind. And yeah, she basically, parang was like, okay, here's the song, bahala ka na. She said kasi she wanted to make a music video on The Sims 4. Tapos last year then we released a parang lyric video. But I made an RPG Maker, which is parang this program where you can make yung parang old school JRPGs na parang SNES, but it's very user friendly. You don't need to know programming much to make a game. So ayun, parang from that to The Sims. I mean, it's not like we could shoot a music video physically, right? Tapos Pat K is like this brilliant filmmaker. So parang, sige, go lang. And I'm glad we were able to do that kasi nga, if we can't wait for us to gather in real life, I mean, discard it. No? Siguro we can find other ways to make music videos. Even our band photo, we had a hard time kind of like, it's just an after. The band photos
Kaya
one of the last
ba
things.
chop-chop yung photos?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
asked Nick Hollis to make it. na parang sabi namin, you want to have a band photo. Kasi yun, di naman kami photo shoot. Pero we needed something. So we asked him to make something that didn't have to make it seem na hindi kami in the same room. That makes sense.
Yeah. And even if we did, like, I feel like we didn't want to force anything. Na parang if we were in the same room, it doesn't look like naka-pandemic, naka-lockdown. So, I mean, diba, it's kind of true to the experience, true to the time. I think yun na lang yung consolation namin na walang full band photo together.
You guys mentioned a lot of 90s alternative rock music. What, for each of you, what music was in your house growing up? What did you hear your folks, what your folks listened to, your older siblings, cousins?
Yung dad ko, DJ, nung parang 80s or 90s. The best man at his wedding was actually, Raton del Gallego of Violent Playground. So yung mga tropa nila, sila yung,
Oh,
I don't know what my dad's term for it was, pero yung parang brads or pards or pares.
Chongs.
Chongs.
Chong!
Basta, Chong yung dad ko, tapos best man niya, rockers. Hindi ka sa kwento na, basta meron silang mobile DJ stuff. So I grew up listening to the Smiths. He'd pick me up from school. Tapos parang, okay, listen to this. And it's the extended version of The Cure's, parang dun, 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 dun. Basta it sounds like Just Like Heaven, pero hindi. The name doesn't come to mind right now. Pero yun, I grew up surrounded by that. My dad actually introduced me to Green Day because he had Dookie. My dad listens to everything. So, I guess I was able to approach music in a way na parang hindi ko alam kung ano yung cool or hindi. Basta pag gusto ko, yun. And I could listen to everything except for Led Zeppelin.
Bakit? Bakit hindi Led
Catholic
Zeppelin?
household. Sorry, Dad,
okay,
if he's watching.
Wow. Mine was the complete opposite. Like, my dad would just listen to whatever was playing on 92.3 dati, yung parang smooth jazz crossover radio. And it was just Led Zeppelin also, like a few years later. And that's all I would listen to growing up, Led Zeppelin. Oh my God, complete opposite. Ikaw, Dom.
Sa akin, parang, I think, yung closest na yata, yung dad ko had this like CD na parang binurn niya yung mga new wave stuff from like nung college days niya. Pero parang medyo out of character yun sa kanya kasi parang usually mga road trips namin parang mga Rod Stewart and mga Jose Marichan stuff. Mom ko naman parang Beatles and easy rock and Pussycat Dolls. Pero parang medyo kalat yung mas strong yung influence ng Guitar Hero sa akin.
How did
Like
you
the
discover your
Sorry.
instruments? How did you how did the instrument called you?
Yung guitar?
Yes, guitar, bass and drums.
I guess when you're young, diba, every summer your parents tell you to take up something. So syempre like the first one was piano lessons. Tapos sobrang strict ng piano teacher ko. I think everyone who's gone through piano lessons as a kid has that story. Kasi syempre you just want to go out and play or parang mag-dance revolution. And sobrang strict ng piano teacher ko, nakakatakot. So I had that, but then I already got interested in music. My grandmother also plays piano at home. And then, ayun, I wanted to play guitar. I was like, Mom, Dad, gusto ko mag-guitar kasi I'd see Kitchi Nadal on Mix. Yeah. And then, parang, oh, a girl can play guitar din pala. Sobrang cool nitong si Kitchi. But my family at first didn't want me to play guitar kasi baka you'll just pick it up and let go of it. Then, my grandmother, one day she picked me up from school, then she brought me to Yamaha. She's like, okay, here, let's get you a classical guitar. And then, I didn't know how to play it at first. So, I had to learn parang ultimate guitar everything from scratch. Parang I was like 11 back then. Pero it didn't really click until I learned power chords when I was mga 15 or 16. Doon na tuloy-tuloy na. Yun, when I got into yung mga emo, My Chemical Romance, typecast, ganun.
Shout out
Just-
typecast.
Yeah, sobrang typecast. What a, phenomenon in the memory of my heart.
Medyo similar rin yung experience ko na parang, well, hindi ako nag-gravitate first towards bass, mas guitar talaga. Tapos may, one summer rin ako, like, guitar lessons. Tapos ayaw ako bilhan ng electric guitar kasi baka sayang. Pero like siguro after like a few weeks of guitar lessons, parang na-convince sila kasi yung guitar teacher ko parang proud na proud sa akin. Parang ano yung mga una niyang tinuturo sa akin, mga kitschy na dahil mga simple like open chords and stuff. Tapos napansin niya yata na parang hindi ako masyadong invested doon. So nung tinanong niya kung anong trip ko, sabi ko Nirvana. So parang nag-glow up siya kasi apparently mahilig pala siya sa ganong rock and like siya into prog metal actually. So parang like old housewife siya. So parang nagulat ako na parang kaya pala may double kick yung drums niya kasi metalhead pala siya. So yun, so parang around high school.
Who's your
siguro,
teacher?
Pangalan niya teacher Ninette. I forgot her last name. Sa Cavite. Parang malapit lang sa amin. Tapos ayun, like, pero I think naging into bass lang ako around late high school na yun, na parang naging, nag-gravitate lang ako doon. Sakto, naghanap si Mariah ng bassist for yung band niya. So yeah.
Kean. Is he frozen?
Mukha.
I think, guitar. Oh, hello?
Hi.
Hello? Am I back?
Yep.
Okay na. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think, we all started guitar pala. Yeah, ako din, I started guitar. I took lessons in RJ sa Galleria. And,
Who was your teacher?
some guy with a ponytail. I forgot his name. He's always in black, and yeah, that's how their staff is, I guess. I forgot his name. Anyway, he taught me how to do scales, how to do like the solo of Sweet Child of Mine. And then I stopped music for a long time. I got into photography and like filmmaking and in school. Tapos I met Mariah and they needed a drummer. I happened to know how to play the drums because my dad played the drums at home a lot. And we had a drum kit. I would mess around every now and then. So kind of guitar player ako at the time. When you join a band, I guess you kind of get relegated to what's necessary. I mean, you would know, diba, Rayms?
Yeah. See, Daren's also a drummer, so we're all drummers here.
Ayun. So, ayun. And then, I guess when you get, I mean, over time, kahit hindi yun yung main instrument mo, you kind of, you grow a liking for, you realize how much you love this new instrument too. So I love to play the drums. You realize the beauty, I guess, in drums. In the same way you've grown to like your main instrument. So it's kind of my main instrument now, drums.
Guys, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for your stories. Ang ganda ng mga kwento. And nawala na. Ayan, bumalik na si Dom. Good luck on your album. Hope to see you live soon. I can't wait to see this album live soon.
Kami din. Can't figure it out.
Thanks for having us, Rayms and Daren.
Thanks,
Thank you so much
Daren.
for making time, Ren. Hope to see you sa gigs.
Yeah.
Yes,
Diba?
soon. Sana.
Hi, Ali. Bye,
Hi,
guys.
Okay, ingat kayo. Stay safe.
Ingat kayo.
Bye, ingat. Bye.